I swear to God, I saw this coming. I this Bills versus Patriots week 16 2021. This is how their week, I want to say, would they play week 13? This is how their week 13 matchup would have went had there not have been a literal blizzard going on. And I fucking promised that. All right. After that game, I was like, man, the Patriots, props. They didn't even have that great of a game running the ball. They were like 1 of 11 on third down. But you know what? The Bills' offense was trash, and the Patriots did have, I mean, whenever you rush for at least 200 yards, that's at least some success. And so they won the game. However, there's no way in hell that a goddamn Patriots team is going to, in kind of a neutral, variable game where there's no insane circumstances where, I don't know, Josh Allen's injured, or there's a fucking blizzard, or Stephon Diggs is out, or there's just like, outrageous circumstances, right? There's no way. The Patriots do not match up well. And I mean, that's just a fact, in my opinion, at least, right? Because the Bills have a great passing offense, and I just don't think the Patriots, they don't play from behind well. And I was watching this at the Bills bar today, and I was like, hey, if we can go up 2 scores in like the second half, then I think we got this game won. Because McCorkle Jones, the Bills had only allowed, 9 passing touchdowns all season to something like 18 or 19 interceptions, right? Like literally take away Tom Brady, his game made up for like a third of all of the passing touchdowns the Bills have allowed all season long. So like there's no way that McCorkle Jones in that bare ass offensive arsenal, especially through the air, is going to go up against this Bills defense, even without Tre'Davious White, with a great amount of success. And ultimately, that's what happened. Mac Jones was terrible. He had like a 31 passer rating, 2 interceptions, like under 50% completion percentage, like 130 yards. I mean, he played I figured he would play a little bit better, maybe like 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But I mean, he played really shitty. And I mean, they still only lost by 12 points. So I mean, if he plays, he gave like about a 2 or a 3 out of 10 performance. Maybe if he gives a 6 out of 10 performance, it's a closer game. But I don't know. This game had a lot to unpack. I think the big thing to look at here, and kind of the eye-opener, especially how good the Patriots defense is, and just Bill Belichick in general, right? At home, historically against the Bills. They did not punt a single time. The Bills had 8 total possessions, right? 6 red zone trips. 6 red zone trips in 8 possessions. And here's the kicker, right? They had a possession right before half that started, I want to say, with about 50 seconds left. And I don't know if there was a penalty, but it ended up the Bills just let the clock run out. Do you really count that as a possession? I mean, technically, but do you really? I don't fucking know. And then at the very end, their last drive of the game where they took knees, that was their 8th possession. Otherwise, they literally were able to get the ball in the red zone every single drive. And I respect the hell out of it. I thought that running the ball, obviously, you're going to put up a lot of yards if your quarterback puts 60 already on there. I mean, he had over 60 yards rushing today. Running the ball, I don't know if they necessarily run the ball fantastically today. I do think the running backs did show up. I liked what Devin Singletary did out of the backfield. However, the fact that they were able to move the ball so goddamn well against this Patriots team, I mean, it's insane to me, right? Like, and they had pretty decent field position. I think at one point in the game, Patriots were averaging like the inside the 20, and the Bills were averaging near midfield, so they didn't have to move a ton, right, throughout the course of the game to get into the red zone. But the running game with Josh Allen is always going to be at least some factor. Obviously, you wish it wasn't so heavily dependent on Josh, but Josh was able to use his legs effectively today on several plays. Obviously, I think the most impactful and the most significant one was the fourth down play on that last drive that really iced the game away. And I mean, I can't really think off the top of my head. I mean, Matt Breida was inactive, so you had Zach Moss getting involved. And I mean, I hate Zach Moss. I'm gonna be honest. I'm done with him. He has had like one good game all year against like the Chiefs, and it wasn't even that good of a game. I mean, they only gave him the ball, 3 times or 4 times? He had 1 catch and 3 handoffs for 30 total yards. I don't know. Devil Singletary, he didn't run the ball particularly great. Did have a nice little touchdown, but only just over 3 yards a carry. Outside of Josh, I mean, you're looking at about 50 yards from your running backs, but that's fine. I mean, they ran the ball 28 times, they threw it 47, so that's a decent balance, all things considered. But I think the big thing here, right? You win 33-21, which is a nice margin of victory, especially over a team that was in first in the division on the road, right? A team that had just beaten you 3 weeks prior, right? That's a damn good win. But I mean, let me tell you, this game could have been a massive blowout, right? And shoulda, woulda, coulda. If ifs and buts were candies and nuts, it'd be Christmas every day. If Aunt Joanna had a dick, it wouldn't be Aunt Joanna, it would be Uncle Joe. I get that, but you want to talk about the Emmanuel Sanders drop on 4th down in the red zone. That's 7 points right there. Yeah. Then you also have Jake Kumro dropping not a perfect pass, and I get it. Jake Kumro he caught his first catch all season long in this game. But I mean, NFL receiver, you should catch that, right? And then you also had, so those are 2 touchdowns right there. I want to say the Bills got a field goal on the Kumaro play, but nonetheless, that's 4 points. And then on a touchdown drive, you had a tough catch, but Levi Wallace had a pass hit him right in the hands over the shoulder, and they ended up scoring a touchdown on that drive. The Patriots did. So, I mean, you take away 7 points from the Patriots, you give 11 points to the Bills. I mean, you're looking at 44-14, and I mean that's an entirely different ball game. Now, obviously, if you every time you touch the ball, you score a touchdown. Every time your opponent touches the ball, they don't score a touchdown. You're going to win a bajillion to 0, right? And then nothing's going to be ideal. And the biggest issue, I think, if I had to nitpick, there were 2 issues that really stuck out to me. First issue, the most apparent, was the red zone problems. The Bills had to go for it on 4th down several times in the red zone, and it's just so frustrating when you have a quarterback like Josh, who's so dynamic and such a physical presence. Your red zone offense should be much better than it is, and it just isn't. At one point they were 2 of 4 in the red zone. They ended up going 4 of 6, which is not awful, but I mean, there's a point in this game where it's 20-14, and I'm like, man. Really? Like, it's one of those games where one team is just dominating, going up and down the field, but, is kind of shooting themselves in the foot, whether it be on 4th down or, just having to settle for field goals. Meanwhile, you have another team who, and now that I think about it, the Bills might have only went 4 of 7. They might have, they had 2 field goals and a missed 4th down. So they had 3 failed red zone attempts. Wow. Did they go to the red zone 7 times? That's amazing. I thought it was 6. But anyway, yeah, it was one of those situations where the game was so close. But I mean, come on. Like, one team was just playing significantly better and significantly more aggressive and overpowering the other. But, that's where the Patriots, I'll give them their credit. They were 9-5 for a reason coming into this game. They play sound, fundamental football. They let you fuck up, right? You can have 500 total yards of offense through the first 3 quarters, but if you only have, 20 points, then what the fuck does it matter? You know what I mean? They might only have 200 yards of offense, but maybe they get good special teams play, or, they're efficient in the red zone. If you get a short field, you get a bad punt or something. You might be losing despite having over twice as many yards. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of the name of their game. But to me, I don't know. That's a nice formula against a team that maybe doesn't have a dominant quarterback. You know, you look at some of the quality teams up and down the league. You know, maybe a team like, no offense to Joe Burrow, I know he's played really well, but I don't consider him a dominant quarterback. But, you know, against a team like in the AFC, like a Cincinnati, or, you know, a team like a Los Angeles Chargers. I know Herbert's a good quarterback, but, you know, he's not an elite quarterback just yet. You know, or a Tennessee, you know, a team that doesn't have a shit ton of firepower, right? And granted, I mean, there's only like 2 teams in the AFC, in my opinion, that check that box, and that's the Chiefs and the Bills. And so, that being said, against the Packers, I don't think that would fly. But, you know, you could get away with against the Colts, or maybe against a team like, you know, the 49ers, or a team like the Cardinals, right? Like, it's not a bad formula. But to me, I don't know. I prefer a team that can kind of do things themselves, as opposed to kind of having to capitalize on the other team's mistakes. Nothing wrong with that. And ideally, you have a team that can capitalize on other teams' mistakes consistently, as well as, you know, do their own thing. And I think that's kind of what the Bills did last year. This year, not as much. But nonetheless, you know, the Bills, they got the job done. Could it have been a bigger margin of victory? Maybe. I mean, but at the same time, you know, if we're gonna say coulda, woulda, shoulda, I mean, they could have beaten this team. They could have lost to that team. I mean, you can go crazy. You can go crazy with it. But kind of an interesting note is the Bills are 8-1 in games in which the score is within 2 or more possessions, or at least by 9 points, right? By more than 2 scores. You know, obviously the only game they lost was to the Colts, and 8 of their 9 wins, it may have been all of them actually, now that I think about it. I think all of their wins have been by more than 1 score, which is kind of wild, isn't it? That's kind of crazy. I kind of want to double check that, because that seems kind of insane to me. But yeah, they have every single game this year, they have won decisively by at least 12 points. That's crazy. They are 9-1 in games decided by at least 12 points. That's nuts. And they are on the contrast. They are what, 0-5 in games that are decided by 1 score, which is that's not what you want. You know, you're not going to be able to blow teams out and win decisively every week. And so something that's a little concerning, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I talked about I ranted about the red zone issues. That one was a little concerning, but the other big thing was, frankly, Damian Harris, who I wasn't a huge fan of. I thought, you know, he was definitely like their lead back, but not somebody that I figured was, you know, more than like a B tier running back. I will say, I mean, the 2 games he's played against the Bills, I mean, he has looked fantastic. He looked really good today, you know, and they didn't get down too much, but they couldn't quite feed it to him over and over and over again. You know, good old McCorkle Jones was forced to pass, and ultimately that was the downfall. But I mean, he looked good. Damian Harris, props to you. He had 2 touchdowns today, over 100 yards, a couple runs that were broken off there. I mean, he's a solid player. And you know, that Bills rush defense, not great. And I mean, I don't know. Look at it this way, though. Would you rather have a fantastic pass defense, like the best pass defense in the NFL, and a not good running defense, or would you rather have like decent of both? I don't know. You know, it's kind of 6 of 1, right? I mean, no defense is perfect. The Bills, certainly without Tre'Davious White these days, they are no 85 Bears. But damn, they can play some good-ass fucking defense, right? Let me tell you. But, yeah, no, ultimately, I think the name of the game was just forcing the Patriots to have to throw the ball and to have to rely on Mac Jones to do a little bit of the heavy lifting. And I mean, he didn't have to do much, you know. they could have gotten away with him, you know, throwing for only 200 yards and a touchdown. But, you know, he had a bad interception that got deflected up in the air. Then you also had the one at the end, which, you know, you kind of take it or leave it. But, I mean, he was kind of all over the place. And I get he wasn't down Kendrick Bourne, actually, now that I think about it. I mean, he had a full arsenal. They were down Ramondre Stevenson and Nelson Aguilar. Otherwise, they were at full strength. The Bills, however, this is another thing I want to talk about. Another thing that kudos to the Bills. This was a huge game on multiple levels. You know, they had no Nelson Aguilar and they had no Ramondre Stevenson. I really like Ramondre Stevenson a lot. Nelson Aguilar, you can kind of take him or leave him. He's kind of a mid-tier, C-tier receiver anyway. But the Bills, they were without Cody Ford, who, say what you want, he is offensive lineman depth, and the Bills were banged up today. I mean, I saw Ike Butker go down. Deion Dawkins was in and out of the lineup. Isaiah McKenzie was in and out of the lineup. Devin Singletary was banged up. Stephon Diggs was banged up. Levi Wallace was banged up. I mean, I don't think any of them left with substantial injuries. Ike Butker, I believe, did he hurt his Achilles? That's a big one. But, you know, Cody Ford, not a great player, right? Probably one of the bigger draft busts of the Brandon Beane era, frankly. However, he is depth, and he at least can be okay at times, which is much better than these practice squad Bobby Harts of the world that have to be thrust into the action, signed off the streets. And then they were also down, you know, our boy Gabe Davis, who past couple weeks has really shown out. And, you know, on top of Gabe Davis being out, they had Cole Beasley, who was down. So you're missing, you know, I would say you're missing your third and your fourth best pass catching options, frankly, you know, or maybe your fourth and fifth. I don't know. Do you prefer Gabe Davis and Cole Beasley over Emmanuel Sanders? I don't know. I think your top two are probably Dawson Knox and Stephon Diggs. But nonetheless, you're missing two starters on offense, right? And then, you know, you've got several players out on the offensive line, John Feliciano as well. So by no means were the Bills at full strength, but they were still able to kind of gut it out on the offensive side of the ball, and I think that's something that's really encouraging. And, you know, it seems like they might actually be out of their funk that was really frustrating throughout the middle part of the season. You know, obviously, for me, this year, something to make me feel a little better, last year was such a fantastic year, and I was like looking back, like there was a 3 or 4 game skid where the Bills, they still won all the games, but they did not look and they did not play as well as they did at the beginning and the end of the season. And I was like, okay, come on guys, like we went through like a 6 or 7 game period this year where you'd play well one week, shit the next. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to justify it and be like, hey, we had the same kind of struggle for a period of time last year, but it just kept building and building and building. And week after week, you'd lose to the Jags, you'd lose to the Bucks, you'd lose to the Patriots. And I'm like, fuck, what is going on? Like, when are we going to kind of batten down the hatch, get blown out by the Colts? But we finally broken that you know, streak of you win one, lose one, win one, lose one, because in my opinion, the Bills have played 2.5, we'll say 2.5 quality games consecutively, right? I think ultimately as a whole, I think the Bucks game was a good game. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? So personally, I think they played 3 quality efforts in a row, and that's what you love to see, because they were inconsistent as hell for a vast majority of the season. Once the Chiefs game happened, from there up until the Bucks game, it was kind of a shit show. You didn't know what team was going to show up. And that was frustrating as almighty hell, straight up. But, you know, you had a nice, solid effort all around against a pretty bad Panthers team, but nonetheless, you took care of business. You know, I thought you should have won against the Bucks, but I mean, still the Bucks are one of probably the 4 best teams in the NFL, 4 or 5 best teams in the NFL. Tom Brady on the road, defending Super Bowl champs. They were at full capacity. Obviously, they've lost a lot of players now, but I mean, they have they had a god squad of an offense, and you were able to get to the point where you really should have won that game, but the refs kind of robbed you. Whatever. I had a big rant about that. And then, today you come in to Foxborough, get revenge on a team that was ahead of you in the division, a team that has historically dominated you, and a team that pretty much, shout out to Mr. Sullivan, but embarrassed them a few weeks before. Let's call a spade a spade. And, they went out there and they got shit done, and they played really well. And now, they have the easy schedule that I had talked about going into the season. It still stands. Looking back, based on the records of the teams on their schedule was about as easy as I thought it was going to be. All things considered, or at least the teams are playing about as well as I thought they would play. Obviously, the Bills, they shit the bed in a few of those games, but it is what it is. Shit happens. You're never going to predict things perfectly, and that's why I tried to break it up and be like, all right, in this 4-game stretch, they're probably only going to win 3 of these games. Are they going to lose to this team and beat this team? Or are they going to beat that team and lose to this team? I don't fucking know, but obviously, my prediction of 13-4, it's looking like it's going to be 11-6, which is not bad. It's not bad, but I'm just glad they didn't go like 10-7 or 9-8, because that would have been embarrassing. All right, 11 wins to me, I think that is right there as far as like it's a good season, because like a 10-win season, sometimes that doesn't even make the playoffs, but 11 wins, that's good enough. Usually that's not too far-fetched to win your division. But nonetheless, though, the Bills are in the driver's seat of the AFC East. I think they will win it. They've got the Falcons at home, and then they have the Jets at home. 2 incredibly favorable matchups. The Falcons somehow the Falcons are, I think, 7-8, and they're still alive in the playoff hunt. Crazy stuff. The Falcons are awful. I am completely off of the ship. I had some serious favoritism towards that fucking squad after the Super Bowl run. As of last year, I kind of jumped off of it. I guess the closest thing to being on their hype train was the Kyle Pitts experience, which I drafted him pretty early in fantasy, and he only put up 1 touchdown all season long. Yeah, he's played pretty well, but in fantasy, yards are cool, but motherfucking Austin Eckler had like 60 total yards of offense, but scored 4 touchdowns and had like 40-something points. So, touchdowns are the bread and butter, right? But, no, the Falcons they're not good. Matt Ryan, they can't cut him. They can't trade him cap-wise this year, so they just kind of had to sit on him. But they need to move on from him. He sucks. They don't got Calvin Ridley. Cordarrelle Patterson is their best offensive player, which is crazy. The Panthers game and the Falcons game, I kind of anticipate those to kind of be 2 similar styles of defeat, I guess, or manners in which if the Bills go out and they win 31-13 or 27-10, that wouldn't surprise me. And then obviously you have the Jets with good old Zachy boy, who is back and playing, Zach Wilson. Doesn't that just seem to be like a fucking the Bills defense just waiting to feast? A turnover prone guy who's a rookie going up against the Bills defense. What they did to Mike White, imagine what they're going to do to Zach Wilson. I would be stunned if the Bills didn't win out these last 2 games. If they finish 11-6 and take care of business by virtue of them sweeping the other 2 opponents in the AFC East, they have the tiebreaker over New England. If they have a 5-1 divisional record, if that happens, and obviously the Patriots lost week 1 to the Dolphins, so the best they can finish is 4-2 in the division. So there you go. The Patriots, I think they have the Jags and the Dolphins left on their schedule, and there's no saying that the Dolphins won't beat the Patriots. They have a history of doing it. They're playing in a way where it wouldn't surprise me if they're able to kind of pull it out. Plus, in Miami at the end of the year, when it comes to spoiling playoff seeding, they've done it before. Brian Flores has done it before, but they also have something to play. They have a really tough schedule. They got the Saints, the Titans, and Patriots. They got a gauntlet, but the Dolphins are still alive. They're 7-7, which is crazy. crazy. I just want to take the time to just say what a wild year it has been in the AFC East. The Jets were as terrible as I thought, but the Dolphins, they were 1-7, right? And here they are at 7-7, around where I maybe would have expected them, but I didn't think they would go the way it did. And then the Patriots, sitting at 9-6, same record. I mean, maybe I thought they'd finish 9-8, maybe 10-7, and they ultimately might finish that way. But I guess what it comes down to is the Bills didn't perform as much as I thought, because I would have been, I told myself I would have been shocked if anybody finished within two games of the division this year going into the season, and it was virtually impossible for anybody to usurp the Bills for the divisional crown, barring a Josh Allen injury or something. And it just goes to show this season's been crazy. Teams have been upset. I mean, virtually every good team in the NFL has lost to a substantially inferior opponent week in and week out. Somebody's getting upset. The Los Angeles Chargers, a team that everybody really wants to hop on the bandwagon and say that they're like the next AFC powerhouse. They just lost to the Texans. I mean, the Titans lost to the Texans a couple weeks ago. Nobody is untouchable, except for, it looks like, the Chiefs, honestly. I mean, they're really starting to put shit together, and they look like that team that has won the AFC the last 3 years. And I'm a little nervous to see how it goes there. But speaking of nervous, I think based on how the Bills have been playing in the past couple games here, it's given me hope where, I've been a believer, especially when home field advantage, obviously it's important for the fans, but who are we kidding? I mean, would you rather play a home game in, it's not going to happen just because they're not in play for their division. But let's say you go to LA to play the Chargers for a playoff game. Would you rather play the Chargers there, or would you rather play them in Buffalo? I would rather Josh Allen play somewhere where it's nice and cool, where I know he's going to be able to air the ball out, because the team just plays better in warmer weather, right? And I know that sounds crazy, but I don't know. I think, the reason I was so pro Bills winning this game today is, with a team the way the Bills have it, with good skill positional players and a great defense and an elite quarterback, a top 3 quarterback. I'm ready to say that now, because I think he is definitely better than Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert this year, and Lamar Jackson. The only 2 quarterbacks that I think, Aaron Rodgers has been the best quarterback this year, straight up. I'm taking Josh Allen slightly over Tom Brady. And I would take him slightly over Patrick Mahomes this year as well. I think Josh Allen's been the second best quarterback. Mahomes and Brady are pretty close behind him, but I think that he has been the second best quarterback this year. And when you have the second best quarterback and a damn good defense, I know your running game's not great, but it doesn't matter, all right? It doesn't matter if you're of course, if you get the 1 seed, right? But whether you're the 2 seed or the 7th seed, honestly, I think the Bills are just as dangerous, because as much as I want to say the home field advantage for the fans is great, I don't know. I mean, if Josh Allen has the ability to play 20 degrees blizzard versus 45 degrees and overcast, little wind, give me the little wind, even if it is in front of a bunch of Titans fans, or, in Cincinnati. That'd be fucking crazy. Not going to happen, though, I don't think, because the Bills are probably going to have the higher seed, and also, they're going to win the division, so they wouldn't play in Cincinnati. But that would be fucking amazing. But something to note, I played around with the playoff machine, and it looks like the 2 matchups the Bills have there are 3 matchups realistically that I sifted through that the Bills can get. And there's a 4th one that's kind of a wild card. That's crazy, but I thought it was kind of funny. The highest chance opposition-wise for the Bills is the Patriots again. They would have another home game against the Patriots, which, barring anything else, I think honestly that's a matchup the Bills are like I said, I think I talked about this when I was ranting about the first game. 90 out of 100 times the Bills are going to win in a game where there's no crazy circumstances and insane weather variables. Case in fucking point. This game could have been a blowout. I mean, it was 2 drops away. 3 if you want to talk about the over-the-shoulder interception from Levi Wallace that, was dropped on a would-be touchdown drive for the Patriots. I mean, it was almost a blowout. Almost a blowout. But you had the Patriots. Then you also had the Colts. Ugh, not a team I want to play. Not a team I want to play. I'll be honest. And then you also had the Chargers. If the Chargers make the playoffs, there's a good chance that they will be the 7th seed. If the Bills can get the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed, the Chargers could also be the 6th seed. And then something I thought was kind of funny, if the Raiders win out, they've got a tough schedule, but if the Raiders win out against the Colts and also against the Chargers, the Bills would play them, which I thought would be kind of funny. Odds of that happening are pretty fucking low because the Raiders always collapse this time of year, and they usually play like shit. But kind of interesting. But no, I think that, obviously I believe the Chiefs are probably going to get the 1 seed. They do get to play the Bengals next week. And with how the Bengals are playing, I mean, they're playing really well. If there is a team that's going to beat the Chiefs, who's to say the Bengals can't? It is in Cincinnati as well. That should be a really good game. But the Chiefs are starting to heat up their defense. For a period of time, the Chiefs were just terrible across the board. And then their offense was really bad and their defense started to heat up. But now it looks like their defense is still remaining pretty hot. But the offense is starting to come back to life because, I mean, they took the Steelers to the woodshed. Let me tell you, man, they beat the brakes off them. And, they beat the brakes off of the Raiders the week before, right? So they're looking hot. But I mean, there's a chance if the Bengals are to defeat the Chiefs, and then the Titans win out against the Dolphins and the Texans, which should be pretty doable, especially if they get Derrick Henry back. I think they'll get him back week 18 against the Texans, as if they'll need him, but they lost without him, so I mean, you never fucking know. The Titans would get the number 1 seed, and the Chiefs would get the 2 seed, which would really make things interesting. I don't want to play the Titans with Derrick Henry. I'll keep it a buck with you. So I hope that they don't get the 1 seed in hopes that, knock on wood for Derrick Henry. He's a great player. I think the league is better off with him playing than without, obviously. But, I mean, for the Bills' sake, I don't want to fucking play Derrick Henry again, especially not in it would be in Tennessee, so the odds of the weather being bad aren't quite as likely as if it were playing in Buffalo. But, I mean, if the Titans do get that 1 seed, the Chiefs in the wild card round could be kind of interesting. The Bills wouldn't play them because, like I said, the Bills are probably going to win the AFC East. So, first round, 2 divisional winners aren't going to be playing each other. But still, I think the next couple weeks, the Bills can just kind of... You don't want to kick back and cruise control because, as my boy Rico has said, especially with the Patriots, literally you're tied essentially. No fucking, I don't give a shit. Like, no benching of a player. Like, fuck that. All right, you gotta go full head of steam. Because as bad as the Falcons are, they still have Matt Ryan, a guy who has won many playoff games, won an MVP, right? Been in the league for a long time. I mean, he's capable of upsetting. They almost upset the Chiefs last year in similar circumstances. So there's no fucking bullshit of taking your foot off the gas. You just got to keep pushing through, and I think the Bills will be fine. I would say there's like a 98% chance they're gonna win the next 2 games. Like all bullshit aside, obviously the Jags game happened, so anything can happen, right? Especially with Urban Meyer. Oh my god, but it's kind of interesting because you look across the rest of the league and you've got heated matchups, especially in the AFC North and the AFC West, and the Bills can kind of sit back and relax a little bit because, none of the teams that they're playing, frankly, have a stake in anything playoff-wise. And so the Bills have, a lot to gain and a lot to lose. But, I mean, looking through the scenarios with just how things are shaking up, I mean, I think I saw the Bills could possibly lose out and still win the AFC East. if the Dolphins beat the Patriots, or, you know, they could still lose, you know, against the Falcons and get a wild card spot. So, I mean, the Bills' chances of making the playoffs are very, very high. We're talking like 90s% wise, but to me, it's all about the matchups. I think the team I'd want to play the most, Patriots, just because I think it's a good matchup for the Bills. I'm not going to talk about the weather thing, but straight up, I think it's a good matchup for the Bills, and also it'd be a great team to play for redemption's sake. Another good matchup, anybody from the AFC West that's not the Chiefs, so the Raiders or the Chargers, having them come to Buffalo, I like that matchup. You know, and it's hard to say with the AFC North if there's another wild card team that's going to get in there, because as crazy and as, you know, competitive as that division has been, there's a chance that only one of them is going to make the playoffs, which is absolutely nuts. 2 weeks ago, I mean, they were fighting each other and kicking each other's asses. And there's a chance that only the Bengals make the playoffs, so that'd be crazy. But, you know, I think the Bills, like I said, the way they're constructed with their defense and with the quarterback, they can beat anybody, especially doing what they did today with, you know, an undermanned squad, all things considered. I think they're dangerous, and I'm really excited over the next couple weeks to see how the seeding shakes up. And yeah, I think that once the playoffs begins, obviously everything's out the window. You would have loved to get that 1 seed, but, you know, it is what it is. Shout out to Nagal Wafer. Oh well, ship sailed. So you just gotta take it game by game. Every game, every week is a playoff game. Just gotta keep win, just win, baby, win. And yeah, I'll be interested. I'll probably share my thoughts as soon as the regular season comes to a close, or if there's some sort of fucking meltdown, the Bills lose. But yeah, looking forward to it nonetheless. Felt good today as a Christmas present to beat the shit out of the Patriots, and really shut that fan base up, because they were way too cocky for having fucking a game manager mid-ass rookie quarterback. They were getting way too cocky, but they got their asses beat. So, and they probably lost the division. Go Bills.